All right. Thank you very much. First thing we're going to do is the opening prayer. I'll do it since I didn't ask anybody in advance. Everybody, please bow your head. Dear Lord, thank you so very much for the Christmas season. Thank you for everything you've blessed us with, for sending Jesus here to die for our sins. Lord, thank you so very much for this new year. Let it be a very good year for us personally, for the city of Hendersonville, and for all the people in this audience, Lord. Thank you very much for everything that you've blessed us with. Lord, guide us tonight. Let us make the right decisions for the city and for the people of this city. All this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Good prayer.
Thank you. So, okay, next we have roll call. Zach, will you take that?
Yes, sir. Altizer.
Here.
Evans. Here. Hardwick. Here. Hasty.
Here.
Kerr. Here. Wessel.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Silkwood. Here. Slattery.
Here.
That makes 9 present.
Okay, next we have public comment, agenda items only, and it looks like we have one person on the agenda. Did anybody else want to sign up for this that forgot to or didn't? Okay, the person that we have is Burkett Nelson. Will you step up to this microphone over here? Say your name and your address right there at the podium. To your right. To your right. There you go. Thank you.
I am Burkett Nelson. I live at 155 Roberta Drive. I'm the life surviving developer of what was called Music Village. Charles, good to see you. You were around back then those days. We had 169 acres that we were developing in the 1980s. 22 and a half of them are being considered tonight for the Trinity cottages. 17 acres of that 169, including the theater and 4 showcases, and 9 acres of Twitty Cities with his stage under the tent of Twitty City were zoned for entertainment. That's what we asked for, and that's what we promised we would do, is create city and county taxable performance income for the city, which we did for quite a few years. The Music Village Theater, when we sold it, was renamed the Music City Theater, which was close, but very confusing because sometimes that sounds like it was Twitty Theater, Twitty City Theater, but it was Music City Theater, most recently known as the Huckabee Theater. Conway actually never had anything to do with that theater. He was not an investor in it, nor did he ever perform there. So, we really don't need to be calling it Twitty's Theater. In the 90s, when Music Village sold our property and Twitty sold his 9 acres to Trinity, that was in the 90s, it was rezoned to office. At the time, I think we called it Planned Unit Development. Maybe that's called Office-PD now. I'm not sure exactly what's happened since then. But the theater was grandfathered in that office zoning, as that was not a normal use in an office public planned unit development. And so what I'm hoping is, even though the theater has been excluded out of where the cottages are going, it's got its own plot now with a parking. We're hoping that it will still be available to the public for more taxable income. I don't know whether it's turned totally religious, where it comes under a religious cause where they don't pay taxes at all, but I'm hoping that that theater can be used for the benefit of the city, because that was the zoning on which we got it approved. I like and am for the cottage plan. I think that I looked it over quite a bit. Thank you, staff. And I would just say I support that. That's all my comments. Unless y'all have questions of any kind.
Thank you, Burkett. All right, next on our agenda is acceptance of the agenda. And I believe tonight we're going to change a few things, so.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to move the election of officers to between items 5 and 6.
All right.
Second.
Do I have a second? We have a second. We'll do this one by voice. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, that will be moved. Thank you. Now, we got one more thing that we need to deal with. We have had a request from one of our city folks to move his item up, okay? And that's Heritage Park, which is under the site plans. He would like to move it up to right after the consent agenda is dealt with. So between 6 and 7, we'll insert him. I'll make that motion. That's, let's see, that is again Heritage Park. And we'll be moving that one up on the agenda. Do I have a second? So I have a second. We'll do this one by voice too. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. So next is the minutes. So with that, has everybody had time to read their minutes? See it? Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All right, we'll do this one by roll call. Or, I'm sorry, by the electronics. Yes, the middle one. Yeah, no,
We'll get some more stickers for those.
Motion to approve, passed with 8 yeses and 1 absent. Abstain, sorry.
thank you very much. All right, next is the consent agenda, I'm sorry, the election of officers. Sorry about that, Vanessa. I need a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the slate of officers as they currently sit, with Tim Altizer as our chair, Wendy Slattery, that's me, as our vice chair, Vanessa Silkwood as our secretary, and Charles Hasty as the vice secretary.
Do we have a second? Second. Okay, we have a second. So we will do this one electronically also.
Motion to approve election of officers, passed with 9 yeses.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move to the consent agenda. And on the consent agenda, we only have one item, so we don't need anything for grouping them. With that being said, does anybody need any description about this, any conversation about it? It looks like everything on there has been agreed to. It must meet everybody's expectations. Anybody got questions about it on the board? All right, then I'll accept a motion. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We'll vote for this one electronically.
Somebody hasn't voted. You haven't.
I voted. I hit it. It lit up and then it went off. Sorry about that.
Motion to approve the consent agenda, passed with 9 yeses.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the change that we made where we have moved Heritage Park up off the previous, or the, off number 8 and moved it up behind the consent agenda. So this one is Heritage Park Site Plan, owner City of Hendersonville. Location is 119 East Drive, parcel 164F 001.00. Leading planning staff is Timothy. There is a waiver request on this, so Timothy, if you'll fill us in, please.
The planning commission approved a concept plan for Heritage Park last year. Now they're coming forward with the site plan for, this is a passive park that will include walking trails, a multi-purpose facility, playground, pavilions, and 40 parking spaces. And then the existing barn that's out there will be renovated. Parks is requesting a waiver from the requirement to provide landscape islands within the proposed parking lot. Our ordinance requires landscape islands to be provided every 10 parking spaces and at the ends of all parking runs. So on page 3, there's an image there that shows the 2 islands that they're asking a waiver from. If granted the waiver, that would just be a paved and striped area.
Okay.
That concludes my report.
Any questions, you guys, for Timothy? Any comments from anyone? All right. I don't see anybody lit up. So, do I have a motion?
I got a question if I could.
Okay, go right ahead. No. Charles, go ahead. I see you on
The area they're asking the waivers for are the green spots up there.
Yes, sir.
I mean, why?
Yeah, come right on up.
Mr. Hasty, that would be a maintenance nightmare, to be honest, with us having maintenance staff to have to go out there just to weed eat and take care of 2 parking islands. We do not have any islands like that in Drakes Creek, Veterans Park, Sanders Ferry Park, the rugby parking lot. The only other park that we have islands that have grass and trees in like that would be Volunteer Park. And that's our request, is to not have to have people go out there on a one-off with weed eaters and maintain something that, quite honestly, would be a waste of our time.
We may have some other commercial developers come in and say it'd be a waste of their time also. I really think you've got an excellent project out here for this park, and I think it'll be great for the community, but I don't know about the waivers.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Go ahead, Ms. Slattery.
Just one question. So if you're proposing to eliminate the little landscape bubbles, are you proposing to stripe that space for additional parking, or it's just going to be,
No, ma'am, it would be striped for no parking.
okay?
That way it would leave room for people to drive around to navigate the parking lot. It would just be striped, just like we have it. We just redid a parking lot at Drakes Creek Park, repaved it last year, that had multiple areas like this where we just striped for no parking areas.
Okay.
I would anticipate when we repave Veterans Park coming up in the next year, we're also going to repave at Mallard Point in the next year,
Good.
that we will do areas like this as well.
Okay. I also have a concern about just the precedence of the city being given a waiver and developers coming into the city and claiming that, just as Mr. Hasty said, that it's an inconvenience to have to maintain it. What do we say to a developer if we've told the city? That would be my concern with the waiver.
Understood.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kerr, I saw you next.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick question. Are those areas going to be curbed?
The areas around the parking lot will not be curbed because we will have multiple times throughout the year when there will be a need for parking that will overflow this parking lot, and putting curbs there would not allow people to use the grass area to the right and above that area for parking.
So you could expect that that's going to be parking at some point. People are going to park on that if you don't curb it.
No,
What's-
it's striped.
Oh, I see. You're just going to stripe it, period. The whole-
That's correct.
So you're not going to curb around where it's striped?
That is not the plan.
Okay. Other than the stripes, what keeps somebody from parking there? I see people parking everywhere, at ball games and different places.
Hendersonville Police Department.
Okay, so it would be the police that have to, okay.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Okay,
And people just using common sense.
good luck on that one. Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Commissioner Silkwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand the thought behind the idea of, setting a precedent and whatnot. I think one thing we need to keep in mind, though, this is not a commercial development, it's not a for-profit development. This is run by taxpayer dollars, and I have to say, Director Gilly and his staff do a really good job keeping up the maintenance of our facilities in the Parks Department with a relatively small staff. So I'm very much inclined to support it just because of that. Thank you.
Commissioner Hardwick.
So, as Commissioner Hasty said, that was the first thought that I had. is that all the other developers are gonna come in here and show up and want the same thing. In my mind, the way I justify it, it's a park, not a office building or a retail center. And we typically, on those developments, you're looking for more grass. And in this case, there's a whole lot of grass once you get off the parking lot. That's how I justify it in my head.
Director Free, I see you're wanting to make comments.
Yeah, I might explain one thing, because you brought up a good point about asking about the curb. And so just for the planning commissioners, typically, a parking lot like this in a commercial area, we would be requiring curb, so you'd be seeing curb. Since this is in a park, we did several years ago, we did change in our zoning ordinance to allow even gravel parking in parks if it was approved by the city engineer's office. So that's one of the reasons that the curb isn't required here, so that it's kind of being treated a little bit different. But that's supported by the zoning ordinance. And then, but it is a little bit different. So, you know, when we're dealing with parking in the public parks, there is a different level of review on what we require. But this is something that does require a waiver that just doesn't get. But I kind of wanted to explain that because I'm sure a lot of you were thinking, I wonder why there's not a curb around there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Slattery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Free, your comment brings to mind the thought that the next time we're looking at zoning ordinances and requirements, that there's an opportunity potentially to look at park-specific requirements to distinguish. We're all saying we're concerned about, some of us are saying we're concerned about precedents and making the distinction of this being park versus a commercial development of some kind. I wonder if there's an opportunity in the future to look at some of those ordinances specifically for parks to remove the precedents concern.
Yes, I think that's possible to do that. And, you know, it really wouldn't be a significant change in the sense that it could be supported. You know, changing something in the future on the zoning ordinance, dealing with parking lots for parks, because that is something that benefits the totality of the community, not just a specific business, or even if it was a church, it's not just a specific church. It's for the whole community when we have parks. And as we all know, you know, one of the reasons that was done and why maybe we need to look at it next time we're looking at changes to the zoning ordinance is that parking is a premium at our city parks, and everywhere we can maximize it, it does make sense, especially if you've ever been the last person that there wasn't a parking spot for. So in the parks, I've had that happen before, and I'm sure everybody has. So we want to try to maximize, but then still balance that with the same expectations we have about attractiveness and all of those different things. And the balance, I guess one thing to keep in mind is, you know, what are we going to waive this? And we're, you know, comparing that to commercial and everything. But in this specific instance, and in most of our park situations, the balance of outside of the parking lot, you know, is pretty substantial open space and grass and trees, and more extensive than it would be in a commercial development, or in most cases, even like if it was a church or a religious type of development, it would be more extensive. So, thank you.
Commissioner Evans.
Yeah, I'm going to support this, but wanted to make a couple of comments. I've had occasion with a couple of daughters to be down in the parks and the softball fields and that area, and it seems that parking is not always done very well there. You're talking about using common sense. If it weren't for the mud holes down in a certain area, you would have people all over the grass everywhere, and parking is at a premium. But I've also noticed, being 73 years old, that at night in the park, unless those white lines are done very well, the islands and the curbs are about the only thing that define the parking lot. And that's my only concern. If we draw stripes on the ground, and if it's raining or if it's dark and the lighting is not very good, that center parking section there, it's not going to be very well defined. So just a concern.
If I may.
Go ahead.
One thing I would say to address that is that I fought since 2016 to have our parking lots repaved, and all of them but one in Drakes Creek Park have now been repaved, and we're about to repave the last one. And we're also working really hard to get some more light in that area. I think this is also an opportunity to use some newer technology, maybe for some solar light type stuff that will help light the parking lot. But the repaving and constant resealing and striping of the parking lots is something that I fought for as an alderman and as a parks director to have happen in our city-owned parking lots, because it can become a fiasco, as you have probably noticed, some of y'all who are up here who are parents, if it's not striped properly. When it is, people seem to respect it. When it's not, we've got people everywhere. So I understand that, and hopefully that's something we can keep a watch on in all parks, not just this one.
It becomes convenient for the coaches to park up near the gates, all the access. It gets to be a nightmare.
Coaches and grandparents and everybody in between, yes, sir.
Okay, any other commissioners have comments, questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion, if anyone has one to offer. So moved. We have a motion, do we have a second? A second. We have a second, so we'll do this electronically.
Motion to approve, passed with 8 yeses and 1 no.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate you
Judge.
moving us up also. Thank you.
Okay, next we have development plans. And again, this one, I'm sorry, you said? No. Okay, development plans. Now we are to the TBN Millennia Cottages, final development plan. Owner is Trilogy Asset Investments Incorporated. Location 645 East Main Street, parcel 158A008. Lead planning staff is Timothy Witten, Zachary Coleman. And this, just so everyone knows, is a deferral from the November 4th and the December 2nd meeting. This was deferred twice, so we're hearing it tonight. Timothy, you have anything to offer on this?
I don't have a whole lot. I can go back over the highlights of the changes of this plan from the approved preliminary development plan, if you'd like me to.
Well, I remember it. The only
Okay.
problem I have with it is
Good
we've
enough.
deferred it twice, so I don't know everybody remembers it. So if you'd like to just get a real quick highlight.
I can do that. So those changes include, they've eliminated the assisted living facility, which comprised of 80 units. They've expanded the independent living cottages from 90 to 110 units. They've replaced the barn with a new storage facility, have reduced the 2 office out parcels to 1 out parcel at the corner of Caudell and Main. They've removed the proposed chapel and added a small cafe at the pickleball courts. And they have increased the length of the sidewalk along a farmed drive to provide pedestrian access for the neighborhood to the church. And then, since the deferral, they're no longer requesting the parking waiver. They've agreed to meet the full quantity and dimensional requirements of the zoning ordinance for parking spaces. And then also, just as a reminder, per agreement with the developer at the last meeting, a note will be added to the FDP to the effect that if the owner desires at any point in the future to implement the assisted living use, nursing home use, an amended FDP will first be required to be submitted to the Planning Commission and BOMA at that time.
Finished?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Timothy. So with that being said, I see we have one person in the queue that needs to ask questions. So go ahead, Todd.
Okay, somebody here to speak to the development?
Yes. Just step up to the podium, say your name and your address, please.
Frank Amedia,
and I'm the CBA and also with Trinity Broadcasting here at Hendersonville.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a couple, maybe follow-up questions from the last meeting, maybe the last two meetings, actually.
Yes, sir.
And I know that the definition of this development has moved from an assisted living to independent living. It's got a 55 and above criteria. And I think the right move was to remove the assisted living. It creates a lot of complexities beyond just the structure part of it. I still have some concerns that we're calling it independent living. And I was in the industry for many years, so, you know, in independent living, it is that. It's made for 55 and above that have, can live independently, but have ready access to medical care and those things. So are you planning to, through this contract or make available or be a conduit to any kind of medical care at these cottages?
Yes, sir. And thank you, by the way, for your overview. If I might just take a moment to thank all of you for your kind consideration on my behalf. The reason I couldn't get here in November was I was suddenly hospitalized, and that sort of caught me by surprise. And then I was prepared to come in December, and we had a snowstorm. We couldn't go anywhere. We were locked in for 3 days. But I really thank you for that, and I apologize for any discomfort that has caused anybody. Yes, and our approach on the independent living is to be able to provide a lot of amenities and a lot of assistance and help. And probably the right person to speak to that on the specifics of that is Chris from Vitality Living. They have the one facility right down the street. They're local, and they're our partner nationwide in multiple areas. So if I could ask Chris to come to that. I know your answer, but that's not my profession.
Sure, thank you.
If you would, please. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, everybody. Our company's Vitality Living, based in Brentwood, Tennessee. We actually own and operate Vitality Hendersonville, right down the road. Specifically to your question, age-restricting housing has really kind of morphed in several definitions. There's active adult, 55 plus, independent living, assisted living, memory care. When it comes to healthcare support, only truly in assisted living and memory care are you licensed to do healthcare support. This will be more of an active adult project. The patio home style, what's happened in some of like the Clarendale building that's right down the road here, where you have independent assisted all in one roof. Sometimes there can be a blend. Sometimes there's a home care service that travels over to those apartments. This being patio home style, residents may have home care, or they may need home care and may use a home care company here locally to come in and deliver that service, but we will not coordinate that for them. To Frank's point, the amenities here are more lifestyle amenities. Truly what we find, and we've done several of these patio home type projects across the Southeast, the type of person who wants to move there is looking for a lifestyle, wants to make sure they're living with folks that are their same age cohort. They're not looking to live next to a family or next to young kids or teenagers. And so they like the connection to people their own age, and also then the lifestyle, like pickleball courts. Obviously, it was mentioned earlier about the theater, having the theater on site. We're going to use that to do a bunch of different entertainment venues, just access and then socialization with people their own age. What's good about us operating both is we do have assisted living memory care right down the road. So when people age and they may need those services, we'll hopefully help bridge that for them, which we think is a positive for both Hendersonville and for obviously the folks who are going to live in the community.
Just to follow up to that, you mentioned an active care. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you call this an active care facility versus or development versus an independent living?
That's the interesting. So it's all independent living, and so it's like the other name that's used for these sometimes is 55 plus. I'm 54. I wouldn't move into a patio home development next year, right? So independent living is probably the right term, and that's more of an industry issue where the terms have been switched around, and truly independent versus active adult. People resonate, our customers resonate better with independent living versus active. Sometimes active we find the average age of our residents who live in these types of communities still is usually 75 plus. And so when you say active adult, their mind goes to 55 plus and they're thinking, okay, that's not for us. So independent living usually covers the customer base we're looking for.
I mean, I hear you, but I think it's a little bit of a stretch
Yeah.
to call it independent living. And my other concern, you weren't here at the last meeting, is how do we control those under 55 wanting to join the community?
Yeah, great question. So the difference between a traditional, you've probably all signed a apartment lease. It covers kind of what you're responsible for, payment, what you can do with the physical space. Our leases for any of our active or independent projects have age restriction, have how many people can live in the property, where you park your vehicles. It's all outlined in the contracts. So we do not allow, so our residents can have guests. If they have grandchildren or kids that want to come stay with them, there's usually a guest period where they're allowed to stay a week at most. If they have something that's longer than that, they have to give a special request to the on-site manager to allow that. But we do not allow anyone under the age of 55 to live in that property full-time. It is age restricted.
So the 1 week is the cutoff?
It's usually a week we have sometimes a college, grandkid is coming in 10 days, but they have to request that beyond. Anything beyond the standard guest policy has to be a request and nothing long-term.
So the 1 week is articulated in your contract?
Yeah, we outline the guest expectations in the contract. So everything is signed. When they sign their resident agreement, all of that is outlined in the contract, and that's what we hold them accountable to. And if they violate that, we go through the same process if we have to evict them for not following the contract.
So, I mean, to me, I'm concerned that you get the creep where you start getting one family that's got 3 or 4 members, you get another one. I've seen developments in Hendersonville and in Sumner County are like that. That's a prominent location, a lot of history there. And I'm concerned that we don't preserve some of that history and nostalgia of what happened in that area. And so that's been my concern all along. The assisted versus independent, I actually think you would be better served not calling it independent, but that's just me. But I am concerned about losing some of the nostalgia of that area and how you control that. So if you had a family that was a repeat offender, having guests under 55 for more than a week, what is your remedy? What would you do?
That's a violation of the contract and they get evicted. We have a patio home development in Athens, Georgia, very similar, 120 patio homes. We have never had this issue there because we're very clear. We've had guests come in. The issues we've had is someone tried to bring an extra car, and we'll address that just like if they had someone else living in the property. So part of moving into the community and why people are attracted to it because they like the rules and they understand it. So if you violate them, that's a violation of the contract, and that's something that we start the eviction process on.
So let me change gears just a second.
Sure.
Because you're in the business to do this. If we've got, I don't know, is it 100 total units?
Yeah.
What is your guess in terms of those families that will have, say, 2 vehicles in this age category?
Yeah.
So where I'm going is the traffic component of that, where it leads onto Main Street. And so I have concern that creates a problem. So walk me through that if you've got the data.
Yeah, so traditionally, we see people, we get a lot of couples in these type of designs. Most of them are one car. Very few, and again, this is just experiential developing these all across the Southeast. Very few, we've got traditional IL apartments, and we have patio home developments across the Southeast. We've got one in Brentwood, we've got one south in Smyrna. It's traditionally one car. Very rarely do families have more than one car at this point. It just is not a necessity. There's so much there. The other piece, we provide transportation to events. That's part of one of the amenities. And so one of the draws is obviously older adults want to save money. And so multiple cars is an expense. So we find they downsize to one car. Very rarely do we have someone that has more than one car.
And this may be a planning question. Are we concerned at all about the traffic, where this traffic will feed into Main Street? And did we decide that we have multiple lanes that have turn lanes, those things, that would give some relief on the traffic jams there?
I think I'll let our Assistant Public Works Director answer that question.
So that really hasn't been hashed out at this phase, at this kind of development plan type phase. That's something we would address with the site plan, where they submit to us a
a traffic impact scoping form where they estimate the trips generated based on the square footage of living space being proposed. And then from there, we determine what scope of study if necessary.
At what stage would that be, I guess, evaluated? Would it,
With the site plan.
with the site plan? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner, if I may? Mark Boyd with Kinley Horn, we're the civil engineer for the project. We already have performed a traffic study for the project. We did that with the preliminary development plan, so that already has been approved and accounted for all of the traffic within the property. Actually at a higher density because we've actually decreased the density overall with this revised plan. So the traffic has been accounted for and there was no off-site improvements required.
So you're not going to add any turn lanes or anything like that to relieve any pressure on the traffic?
No, sir. There was nothing that was required based on the volume of traffic generated by this development.
Well, my concern is that you can't get from one end of this town to the next quickly anymore. So that's a lot of traffic, even though it's one vehicle that feeds onto Main Street. And I'm having a problem approving this from my perspective because of the pressure on traffic in general. And so just help me get comfortable with it, I guess.
If I may speak to that, please.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And we had the same concern. Typically, originally we were at 170 units. We've decreased that by almost 40%. And that traffic was approved and it met code according to an IL and mixed use basis. Obviously, if you're talking assisted living, you're not going to have as much traffic, but visitors you do have almost daily. That's eliminated completely. The configuration of the site right now that we have, what was Music City, I was very interested to hear what the gentleman shared with because I understood that history. I want to speak to that a moment too. If you saw, we were influential with our friendly neighbors, our great neighbors, the First Baptist, to get a red light it's an exit now. So now if you're going to exit on the existing area, you'll find all the traffic's being diverted over to the red light. And it even is enough to handle the church when it lets out on a Sunday with 2,000 people leaving and they use part of our parking lot. I think we've mitigated that a lot. I think that not only did we mitigate it a lot, part of our concern was the density. So we took the density down to 4.94 per acre. I think Chris and Chuck, the chairman of Vitality, will tell you that's not heard of because developers can't typically afford to get down to less than 7, 8, 10 units per acre and make it work. We own the property, and our motivation wasn't density. Our motivation wasn't how could we stretch the price per unit. Our motivation was what's going to be a wonderful place to live in with all the amenities we can give and preserve the auditorium, which, Mike Huckabee, bless his heart, he's serving our country. He's a great man. We lost Mike. We gained him in one end, we lost him on the other end. But now you have the Gaither family that comes there, and they've been doing an excellent job. And recently, in the last 3-4 months, there's been events that have been used for certain areas in the community in that. So part of the plan with that is to integrate that into this community, integrate it also for the use of the assisted and memory care so they can come for special events, and then also to be able to be available for the community to have events now, whereas in the past is just the Huckabee Theater, it really wasn't viable and practical. So in one way, I think our sovereign Lord sort of settled that whole thing by taking Mike and sticking him in Israel and giving us that place and giving us the incentive to diminish it. And especially after the tornado, as we spent a lot of time on that site, it set us back a year, as you well know. We owned the Holiday Inn for 9 days before the tornado decimated it. We got it back and running in 6.5 months, which, by the way, got an award from Holiday Inn for excellence and expedience. But it also caused us to take really hard looks at the site again, the infrastructure of the site, how it's laying out, how it's working. And then, of course, as our relationship with Vitality increased, because they are our manager in Orlando with a very large site, we realized that we already had something that was really good in the community. How can we join hands and make it better?
were we really doing a service to the community by adding more density with more memory care, more assisted living, or are we doing better by joining our hands and giving people a way to age up and go to places? We ran studies. We're not just being arbitrary. And the studies proved to us that, our market is 75 plus here, as he mentioned. And on the parking, yes, the code required two, so we apologize we didn't do that in the first place. It wasn't arbitrary where we were trying to figure out how to jam cars, because the typical car is one car. What Chris didn't mention to you, the lease is restrictive. You cannot use the garage for storage. It must be a garage that holds a car. And there's a purpose for that too, because our thresholds are 0. So that people taking their groceries into their kitchen and that, they don't have to stumble over something. And independent can use a walker, right? So everything's made for that purpose as well. And also there's no living ability in there. You can't store stuff in there for living ability. So the fact that we've added the second, literally it's a second drive now. My opposition to that was, I don't like concrete jungles. I don't asphalt jungles. I come from a long life back in the day of the HUD experience. I was a HUD director. And those things we were trying to solve when we had huge density. So our approach to that is we want it to be permeable areas that have some grass along with the concrete, that have some cobblestone. And I thought that the team, Timothy and Keith and the team, their comments were exactly the ones I'm making and I would make about the exteriors. We don't want just horizontal siding. We want a combination of our vertical Dutch lap, our stone, and to be able to give some different faces to it as it goes. So we're aligned with you perfectly. Our hearts are beating exactly the same, and I would hope to prove that we took the concern and jumped right on it with the mansion. And those of you who were able to come and tour it with us, thank you for that. I believe we brought it back better than it was. And we're proud of that, and that's going to be part of our facility as we're using it there. So I hope that helps answer that question.
It does, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Hasty, you're in the queue.
I may get out on a limb by myself again. But this project has been obviously a very involved, revolving project. When it was first submitted, we had our public hearings and whatnot. Assisted living was always a component of this development. You got a negative recommendation from the Planning Commission. I don't even remember how I voted, but you went on to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and you got a positive recommendation from the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. The plan that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen approved had 80 assisted living units as a part of the project. And that's what the Board of Mayor and Aldermen approved. And that's what I was expecting to come back to the Planning Commission. Had we received a plan that met the plan that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen approved, and you met all of our regulations, I'd have been the first to say yes. I would have voted for that project. But it's constantly evolving. Tonight is the first time that I'd heard that Vitality was a partner in this project.
Let me correct that. There are management companies. So when I say partner,
Okay.
yeah, they don't have a financial interest other than a contract with us to manage
their financial
it.
interest would be you competing with the Vitality project that they have. From a management standpoint, they don't want you competing with them, maybe, if you've got your own assisted living. Out of respect to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and the project that they approved, I think it should go back to them. They want assisted living, they can vote that way. They want to take out the assisted living and prove this plan, bring it back, and I'll vote for it. But I think out of respect to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, it should go back, because we're doing something against what they approved. So we'll see how it goes.
Thank you, sir.
Overview here, just real quick.
Director Free.
Yeah, let me give just a quick overview, and I think almost everybody understands about this process, but maybe so the folks in the audience understand as well. This several years ago went through our process as a preliminary development plan, and so we call it a PDP, preliminary development plan. It's basically a rezoning of the property. And so going through that rezoning, as Commissioner Hasty had stated, I think previously when it came through the preliminary development plan to the Planning Commission, the Planning Commission in this particular instance, is a recommendation body and made the recommendation to BOMA, and it was a negative recommendation. But at BOMA, they actually ended up approving it. And so by approving that, they rezoned the property and then gave it, whatever rights it had to that particular plan. Now, what we have before us this evening is a final development plan, an FDP. It's kind of the conclusion of the PDP. So the PDP is the entitlement that sets this is what you can do, and then the FDP is then focusing in more and having more specifics, on what to do. So the Planning Commission will make a recommendation on this proposed final development plan, and then that will go to BOMA, and then they will ultimately have, the final determination on that. And then if it's approved at BOMA, then I think the issue that came up a while ago about the traffic study and everything, which was already done at the preliminary development plan, and I know I'm saying a whole lot, but then when that site plan is done to actually submit for everything that's going to get built during that process, which will come back to this body, then that's when the city engineer's office will review to see, hey, we need to update the traffic plan or do the traffic study to see if anything's changed that might require off-site improvements. And so that's kind of the dynamic of what this whole thing is going. And just for the planning commissioners, you're not seeing a lot of the FDPs. You're typically, because we changed it a few years ago, you're seeing the CDPs, which are the combined development plan, which is taking the preliminary and the final and doing it all at one time. In this particular instance, it's separated. So that's why it's a little bit different. So I just kind of wanted to explain that, Mr. Chairman, for the folks in the audience.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Evans, you're in the queue.
Yeah, I'm kind of confused here. I voted against the rezone when this property was rezoned to begin with. Then we came back and the project that was originally laid out in front of us was far more extensive than this. It appeared to combine several different approaches to residential property. It did do a traffic study, and traffic's always going to be a problem here. Anything we look at has a traffic problem in Hendersonville. There will never be anybody that won't complain about traffic regardless of what we are considering. So that's not an issue to me. What is an issue to me is we pulled out everything in this initial project, and now I see a duplex development. Call them patio homes if you want to, but they're duplexes. And I'm not impressed. This has nothing to do with Trinity Broadcasting except you own the property. And we still have a group of duplexes, which I believe we probably got misdirected in trying to save the Twitty house and said, well, okay, save the Twitty house and we'll let you build these duplexes. So I guess maybe that's my confusion, but I can't vote for this.
Commissioner Slattery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question, and I think it's more directed to planning staff and to Director Free, so that I understand. When we say independent living, is that the same as 55 plus when it comes to Tennessee regulations, that 20% of the units can allow people under the age of 55 in total, I understand that, as I understand it, Tennessee regulations for 55 plus say that 80% of the units have to have at least one resident in the home that's 55 or older. But 20% of the units don't have to apply that age restriction.
That would be something that might be what the state, and maybe the developer can address it, but that would be something that the state law might say. But for us, we just define independent living facility, so it's a little bit of a broader thing. The nuts and bolts of how that might work, maybe the basement of it is what the state laws are in regards to that, depending on the type of facility that it is. But then that doesn't necessarily mean that's what the minimum has to be. Hearing the developer representative talking, it sounded like theirs is a little bit different, and they have the leeway to do that.
With HOA covenants.
Yeah, with restrictions and all
Okay.
those different things. You know, they probably have that, but that's something if the developer wants to address that. But for us, we don't get into that with just the broad, we just get into the broad independent living facility, not all of those different, different specific things. And those things, honestly, every year we see it, something changes in the state law. So there's always something changing that might change what those percentages, would be.
If I may, Ms. Slattery.
Go ahead.
Your question is well put. We are not subject to a state law that would require us to adjust our plan to a 20%, and we won't. We're going to be very strict, as we said, as it is. It's quite typical. 100% of your leases are 55 plus. They have to qualify, and they have the restrictions of how long somebody can stay, how many cars they can have. This isn't and by the way, the cottages you see now are the same cottages you saw before. They were always presented at that as a two-unit cottage because we don't want congregate living. We don't want row-type spaces where people are walking upstairs. We're not looking for density up to 7 or 8 per acre. We want it to be a nice living facility for somebody who's, in some ways, they may be going down and what they want to do. They don't want to have as much to take care of. They want someone to do it for them. They want something that looks like a home, feels like a home, and is their home. Adding units to each other doesn't do anything for the project. In my purview, it takes away from it. You have less landscaping. When you're only at 4.9 units per acre, you have a lot of room for landscaping. And again, I don't like the idea of concrete or asphalt looking forward, because that's what you look like. You then begin to look like a multi-family unit. That's not what we are, and we can't be and never will be. I might also add to you that, because of who we are, our financing structure, which some of you can relate to, is tax-exempt bond financing. That's very strict. Those are 40 years, 30, 40 years. And so the plan that we present to them is the plan that we have. We don't have the independent ability nor the desire to go in and change the plan. That is the plan. And so what ends up being permitted by this city is more than just an exhibit. That's our plan, along with the way that we're going to manage it and everything else. And that's what we're accountable to do so. So very meticulously, we considered the market. And to Mr. Hastings' point, yes, when we first came in early '24, we were considering what would be a mixed-use facility with the assisted and with your memory care. So it was 80 units of assisted and memory care, and then the vast amount of it were the independent living cottages, just like they are. But as we did some more studies, we determined that probably wasn't in the best interest not only of our site but of the community, because you have some facilities now, and I don't know that us competing with assisted and memory care is going to do the community any good. But where we do bring a bright star is with this lifestyle center that we're bringing, that is not mediocre by no means. It's if you allow me, it's a high-end product that's brought at an affordable price. And we're able to do that because we own the land. If we didn't own the land, we wouldn't be able to do that. We couldn't bring it forth at numbers that made sense and worked. And so the way I look at it, and I can appreciate, the metamorphosis of it all, is, and forgive me, but, I am a pastor, I'm a man of faith, so everything to me has to line up on that basis. I just see the good Lord's hand in this, that he's brought it back to a place that is good for the community, good for everybody. And you are right. One of the positions that was brought was to deal with the mansion. And not only did we concede that, we were happy to do that. It's a wonderful facility, and it's going to be a centerpiece along with the auditorium to this community, and it does make it special. It does make us different, and we'll continue to be Music City. We're not going to give that up. I hope that answers that question. Thank you.
So I'll go back to,
You have another question?
yes, for Director Free. So nothing in any of the DPs, the CDP, the FDP, the all DPs, nothing has actually articulated that it is 100% 55 plus. So if the project is approved, and the world changes every day, but 6 years from now, things aren't moving along as they had intended in their business plan, could they back off of that 55 plus without having to come back for any kind of approval? Okay, thank you.
The answer is no.
Okay.
The definite, this is being developed as independent living facility. They have to meet our definition, which is on the screen, which means that in each unit, one of those people has to be 55 or older. It has to meet our definition, and that's part of the plan. That is in the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioners have questions, comments?
I'll make it real quick because I know this is going on.
Go ahead.
We have a couple in our small group who is 75, and they just recently purchased a home in the Vineyards, which is on the backside of 12 Stones. And if I'm understanding what they're saying, those are very similar to kind of what these will be, other than those are home ownership, where this is rentals. But other than that distinction, I think they're going to be pretty close to the same. They paid over $600,000 to be in there. So I think this is a product that's needed, and I think they'll fill it up in a hurry.
Any other commissioners, questions, comments? Anybody have a motion that they would like to offer?
Sure, I'll do it. I make a motion that we accept
Sorry.
what has been presented
With all staff comments.
with all staff comments.
Do I have a second? We have a second. Okay, we'll do this electronically. Sorry about that.
Motion to approve passed with 6 yeses and 3 nos.
Okay, and Director Free would like to let everybody know the next steps for this.
Did it pass?
Yes.
Okay. So where it goes from here is next Tuesday at the BOMA General Committee. It's kind of a small meeting of some of the BOMA Board of Mayor and Alderman members. Then they'll review it, and then it'll pass through that committee. And then 2 weeks after that, it'll be at full BOMA and for the first and final reading. So that'll be the final determination of this particular project in about 3 weeks. So,
Thank you,
Thank you.
Director. Okay, next we move to the site plans. First one is 120 at Saunders Ferry site plan, owner Stephen Penair, location 120 Saunders Ferry Road, parcel 160MC017.00. Lead planning staff, Timothy, you want to tell us about this? And this is a waiver request.
Thank you. This is a vacant 4.7 acre site that's located at 120 Sanders Ferry Road. It is zoned general commercial. There was an old site plan that was approved a few years ago, which was a mixed-use development, had 54 residential units over commercial. So this new plan is for 3 buildings and the associated parking. On the image there, I know it's kind of hard to read. Building 1 is the top right-hand building. Building 2 is bottom right-hand, and Building 3 is the large building to the rear. So buildings 1 and 2, which are located closest to Sanders Ferry, those will be single-story commercial retail, totaling about 21,500 square feet. The third building at the rear will be a headquarters for Panera Roofing, which is a commercial roofing company. There will be 2 accesses off of Sanders Ferry, 1 full ingress, egress, and then a right in, right out. And then there will be cross access to the lot to the north. They are providing 176 parking spaces out of 175 required. They are requesting 3 waivers. So the first waiver, our zoning ordinance allows for the use of high-quality architectural metals to be used on a case-by-case basis, and those are proposed in limited quantities on the 2 retail buildings on Sanders Ferry and greater quantities on the front of Building 3. The primary materials should be brick or stone, and Buildings 2 and 3 meet that requirement. On Building 3, high-quality architectural metal is the predominant material on the front, although there is a good amount of brick on that side as well. On the north and south sides of Building 3, the brick wraps around the sides of the building, but the predominant material on the sides and the rear is your standard metal siding, which is what you would associate with a typical sort of warehouse kind of building. In the image that's been provided, everything in yellow is the standard metal siding that they are requesting the waiver for on Building 3. The parts that are highlighted in red, that's the brick, and then on the front where you see that signage, that's more of the high quality metal siding. So they're requesting for the waiver for that Building 3 for the metal siding. Then moving on to number 2, waiver request number 2. Our zoning ordinance requires that at least 75% of the replacement trees be canopy type trees, so canopies that will develop a broad canopy rather than smaller ornamental type trees. The purpose of that requirement is to maintain and increase the city's canopy, tree canopy. 100% of the replacement trees for this project are proposed to be the ornamental type rather than the canopy. So that's a total of 30 trees they're requesting for a waiver. And then the last waiver, number 3, the zoning ordinance requires a minimum of 20% of the overall lot area to be pervious surface, so something other than asphalt, concrete, or rooftop. And the applicant is proposing to provide 17.5% pervious area. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Timothy. Commissioners, okay. Commissioner Martin.
Thank you. This project has generated, excuse me, this project has generated a lot of interest on social media, so I wanted to see if we could talk a little bit more about this for the people at home. Procedurally, you mentioned it was residential. We did the Westlake plan. It moved to general commercial. So that would make this a by right application. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The other concern on social media is obviously the traffic impact. But there's a note from Public Works. I wanted to see if you could articulate. Is anybody from Public Works here? Yeah. Trey, can you talk a little bit about the concerns for the Sanders Ferry Road improvement and then also the stormwater detention, because that ties into the permeability the waiver
certainly.
request?
So, the city this past year had widened the road, the Saunders Ferry Road, from about six or 700 feet south of the intersection with Main Street. So this project will be required to extend that two-way left turn lane. You know, the width of its frontage, and then that 200-foot or so taper to that two-way left turn lane width would have to be shifted south of their property frontage. So the intent is at some point to have a 3-lane section, the large majority of Saunders Ferry Road. Regarding the stormwater detention, their proximity to Old Hickory Lake, that they have requested not to require detention, and our response to that is, well, okay, prove to us that, you know, the receiving infrastructure has capacity for the 25-year storm, which is per our ordinance, and also that there won't be any kind of negative impact to the roadway. So we're really concerned at this point with runoff bypassing the proposed inlets and inundating the roadway. So there's methods they can use in their stormwater analysis to prove to us that the spread and the depth around those inlets does not cause bypass and does not inundate the roadway.
All right, thanks.
Yes, sir.
So when I look at this project, these are my own personal thoughts, but when I look at this project with all the parking spaces, yeah, you're meeting the parking space requirements, but the site is just, the permeability is an issue. The square, I think there's too much building on this site, is my opinion, because it's driving the parking count up, and they're not able to provide what we're asking for as far as the shade trees and the permeability. I don't have a problem with the first waiver, but the others I do. So those are just my thoughts. Thanks.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Hasty.
I agree. I believe if the staff would work with the developer on waiver 1, I think we could come up with a product that would be okay. Waiver number 2, I think we need to get as many of those trees there as we absolutely possibly can. But is this a scenario where contributions to the tree bank would suffice on a portion of the trees? Yeah, I need to get all the trees we can.
I can speak to that. So this isn't really an issue of the quantity of trees. They're providing the quantity. It's the type of tree.
But if there's an issue with replacing of trees on his site, if there was such a massive amount of existing trees that he couldn't meet that 75% requirement, we could at least get them off-site if we can in a tree bank.
So
but I think you should get them on site.
You know, they are providing all the replacement trees. They're just not the canopy type tree that we require. So.
Yeah. They should be the canopy trees. And I also agree on waiver number 3. I mean, you got a site that's over 4 3/4 acres. And what are we talking about? 5,000 square feet?
I believe so, roughly.
Do what?
So I believe so, roughly. Can I speak to waiver 2 and 3?
Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. So to speak to waiver 2 regarding the trees, as Timothy mentioned, we're replacing all the trees that are required. Now, the big reason for not wanting to necessarily have shade trees everywhere is because when you have a commercial development like this, visibility is very big for a thriving commercial development. If you put shade trees everywhere, once they get to full maturity, you're not going to be able to see this development from the street. And so also the existing site is pretty much open. Like, the only trees that are on the site are at the back end of the property. The whole site's been cut for hay and has been maintained for the last several years. And from a canopy standpoint, we're not necessarily removing that much canopy, in my opinion. Now, as Timothy said, we're replacing all the trees. They're just ornamental trees that fit a commercial development, more so than a residential development. To speak to waiver number 3, we were really close to meeting this. And then as we were working through the design process with the fire department came back, and I'm not putting him on the spot. I've gotten his permission to actually state this in the meeting. So as we were working through it, he wanted us to have wider drive aisles throughout the site, which we accommodated. And when we accommodated that, it made it a little bit challenging to meet the impervious surface requirement. I would also like to add, to speak more to the detention, it's not necessarily a waiver, but I guess it is a waiver. To speak to the detention waiver, it is very common for sites this close to the lake to request this waiver. If you detain water and hold back water from entering into the lake, you end up causing more problems in later storm events. And so it is common practice to alleviate and remove the stormwater runoff off the site sooner than later. And so that's one of the main reasons why we're asking for that waiver. We've sat down with Trey and his department multiple times to discuss this, and we are actively working back and forth with them to make sure that we meet their requirements.
Commissioner Hasty, you're still in the queue.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
sir.
think your stormwater requirement is, I think that's a perfectly good answer, but you have to answer to the city. You're gonna get it across the street and get it to the lake.
Yes, sir.
If you're not gonna detain it.
Yes, sir.
You may have to upgrade the capacity.
Correct.
Of some structures to get it there.
Correct.
But I agree, detention is not necessarily required if you're gonna get it to the lake.
And to speak, I guess, to more so the impervious surface, we are proposing water quality units being installed subsurface on site to treat the water before it exits the site. So it's not like we're asking for a complete stormwater waiver on this project. We are utilizing water quality units to treat the water. We are upsizing the culvert. There's an existing culvert that goes under Saunders Ferry right now. We are upsizing that to provide more capacity.
Also, I think your argument of visibility on trees.
Yes, sir.
Pretty weak argument, in my opinion.
Okay.
And coming up with 5,000 square feet or so impervious area and blaming it on the fire department, still a little bit of a weak argument.
Okay.
It's a little bit overkill, or maybe a little overdevelopment, overbuild, if you can't meet that 20%.
Any other commissioners, questions, comments? I see none in the queue, so anyone have a motion that they'd like to offer? I'm sorry? Well, you can do it any way you want to do it. You can. You can do the waivers, you can do the waivers individually, you can do them as a group, you can do it however you see fit. Okay. So, your first motion is waiver number 1 request to agree to the waiver? Is that what your motion is?
Yes, a motion to approve waiver number 1.
Okay, do we have a second? We have a second. Now we'll go electronically for the vote.
State what that waiver is.
Okay, I'll make the statement.
Are you wanting to talk?
I was gonna move to approve the whole thing. That's not what we're doing.
All right, the motion before us is a waiver request, use of metal siding in GC General Commercial Zoning Building Number 3. Okay, do I need to read the details further than that? Okay, we have a motion to accept it as this waiver as is, and we have a second. Now we're going to vote electronically on that waiver.
Motion to approve waiver number 1 passed with 9 yeses.
Okay, and then now,
Motion to approve waiver number 2.
Okay, and this motion to approve waiver number 2 is a waiver request for the replacement of the tree 50% canopy requirement. And just to make sure everybody knows, Timothy did state that they have hit the right number of trees. They are just not the same type of trees, canopy trees, that our restrictions require. Okay, now do I have a second?
Is it 75% or 50%? 75%. Yeah, it's actually 75.
Could I ask a question before we go?
Yeah. Yeah, see, but go ahead, Charles. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, I think there's room for a compromise here somewhere. Maybe if you could just come up with more canopy trees in lieu of such of the decorative trees versus me sitting here saying you got to make every damn one of them canopy. You know,
I think we can do that.
you know, but you better do some quick negotiating if you're gonna get my vote on it.
Okay.
I can say there is room along the south property line, not in front of the development, but on the bottom side of it.
And we can,
To add 15,
yeah.
to hit the 50% mark.
Okay, and I could even see us putting some in the internal islands in between the buildings, but along the frontage of Saunders Ferry, I think that's, so I mean,
Yeah, I think you could hit 50% without putting any additional along Saunders Ferry.
okay. Would you allow for 50%?
Canopy.
Can't, yes.
So you're increasing it, you know, to 50% of them that are gonna be canopies that you now have as ornamentals.
It'd probably save us money. Because the ornamental trees are not cheap.
Well, you buy the right caliper and size and quality of the right canopy trees, you know,
Yes.
they ain't not gonna be cheap either, but I'm sure the new guy up here off Saundersville Road would be glad to sell you a
Yes.
bunch of them.
I think I might know that person.
Right, it'd sell you a bunch of them, maybe even a little bigger caliper than what, you know, you had
Okay.
in mind.
So would you be okay
Okay,
with?
now, question to the staff, is that something you think you could work out to the satisfaction of the staff?
Yes.
If he's willing to negotiate on the canopy tree?
Yes.
So do we
With
need to
his
do,
yes, I'll vote yes.
do we need to do the motion as a determined percentage, or do we need to do the motion that he has to work with staff? I say staff.
Thank
So you cool with making the motion? You want to reword your motion?
Motion to approve waiver number 2. Subject to working with the staff.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. We'll vote electronically.
Motion to approve waiver number 2 passed with 9 yeses.
Okay. Then finally, we are to our third waiver, and the third waiver,
Motion to approve waiver number 3.
as is. You're fine with it just the way it's written?
I'll defer to Charles Hasty on that.
Good decision.
Generally, you can find 5,000 square feet.
So
Now,
if,
if you're looking at your site plan, at the back of the building there, in that parking lot, you know, you've got some wide areas there that are gonna just be asphalt. You could
Yes.
put some green space there. At the end of those parking spots there, you could put some green space in there. You know,
yes, sir,
cut
so
down
to
a couple
provide,
of feet on that one, minimize the parking, you can get 5,000 square feet if you
So
make
I'll-
20%, I think.
if I can provide some context to how we got to this point in our site plan. So as mentioned in Timothy's presentation, Building 3 is intended to be the headquarters for Panera Roofing. So the back of house, back behind the building can be a really important and critical component to their business. The other thing is that right now, what we're assuming in this site plan is that 5,000 square feet of these commercial buildings up front are gonna be restaurant. And so with a restaurant component to a commercial development, restaurants require much more parking than a normal retail development. Now, obviously, we'll have to monitor the tenants that go in here and the final uses. But what's driving that parking number way up is the restaurant component to the development. If we were to just do retail use, the parking requirement would be much less, and we could likely very easily hit the pervious requirement. But what we were trying to do with this development was not only provide a home for Panera Roofing, but also provide a much-needed restaurant space, retail space for this peninsula in this, I'll say it, up-and-coming area, which drastically needs redevelopment, in my opinion.
Well, I think you've got a great development here, and I think it's good for the area. I think it's all around good. But we have a zoning ordinance with regulations and requirements.
Understood.
There for a reason. Since you have it a roofing company back here in the back, that's parking for them.
Correct.
And a restaurant up front. Well, the odds are the use of the restaurant is not going to be the same time the use for the roofing company.
Correct.
You know,
And
if
we
you
can do a
balance some
parking study.
parking, I'd be more apt to give you a minor variance on the parking requirements.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay?
to get to the green space requirement. You know, you need to get with the staff and work these things out, in my opinion, before you ever get here. And I'm sure the staff is
Well, and
more than willing to work
yeah,
with you.
and I've
There are some
spoke with,
negotiated areas of stuff
Yeah.
like that.
I've
You know,
spoken with
A
Timothy
little give
about
here
this.
and a little give here.
Yes, sir. Now, if we're negotiating, which we have on the other one, would you be open to us utilizing pervious pavers in parking spaces?
Doing what?
Utilizing pervious pavers in parking spaces to help meet that requirement
Are you good
as a
with that?
combination?
I'm looking at staff, I would be fine with it.
I would be fine if staff agrees.
I think we're okay. Are you okay with it, Trey?
And I'm not saying all 5,000 square feet or whatever that number ends up being, the 2.5% is gonna be met with the pervious pavers, but we can find more pervious area and also utilize pavers in conjunction to meet that full 20%.
I think square foot for square foot of impervious versus paver, you're gonna have to do a whole lot more pavers to get the same effect of impervious of a grass space.
Actually, you can get more water back into the ground with pervious pavers than you can do a pervious
Not on a
surface.
sloped parking lot, I don't think.
The vast majority of this parking lot is well under 5%, which pervious pavers require, you have to be less than 5% to function. And the
I'd
majority of the parking spaces are at 2%.
Yeah,
I didn't see a whole lot of calculations.
I think staff would be okay with it as long as the engineering worked out on it. And I would look for using those pervious pavers in a very creative manner for attractiveness.
Yes.
In key areas where that it could be, the visual attractiveness of it could be utilized. That could be interesting.
Yeah, imagine pervious pavers looking like cobblestones in front of those buildings.
Yeah.
That would look very nice.
Maybe. Okay.
If you can convince the staff that you're getting equal amount of perviousness
Yes.
with that as you can for the green space and square foot per square foot,
Yes, sir.
I'll go along with it. Putting a monkey on you, buddy.
All right.
Thanks,
Okay,
Mike. Thanks,
so-
Michael.
Our motion is a waiver request, and they're going to hit their minimum 20% pervious area requirement by using pervious pavers creatively according to what our staff will agree to. That's the motion that's been offered. Do we have a second? All right, we'll vote electronically. Okay.
Motion to approve, pass with 9 yeses.
So now that we have all of those addressed individually, I'm going to offer the final motion. And the final motion is to approve the entire site plan as it's written with all of the waivers that we just agreed to, per staff comments, and that's it, correct? Do I have a second?
Can I make one last comment? I'm
You
sorry.
go right ahead,
Okay.
but don't do anything that's gonna
I know,
jeopardize it.
I know.
Because your boss may be pissed.
I know.
Okay.
The only thing I'll add, and I meant to mention this in my opening statement, the widening of Saunders Ferry Road was brought up. With this site plan, we're already showing a widening of 12 feet So what we did is we did a symmetrical widening where we offset 6 feet for a 6-foot middle section and then a full 12-foot lane. So the only other area we need to make up is 6 feet. And I don't know if we can do that in existing right-of-way on the opposite side of the road, but we will work with Trey and his department to make sure that gets obtained. But we're already showing a widening with this plan. I just wanted y'all to be aware of that.
You feel good about that, Trey? I do. Okay, cool. So we have a motion, we have a second, and everybody's itchingly wanting to push these buttons.
Thank you.
So go right ahead.
Motion to approve, pass with 9 yeses.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. You did good. All right. Moving right along on the site plans, we've skipped over Heritage Park. We've already done that. Next is Nashville Tempered Glass Warehouse Site Plan. Owner Grants Fireworks Property Management. Location 100 Jessica Lauren Court, parcel 146-100-00. Again, this is Caitlin. Sorry, not Timothy. And this again is a waiver request.
Thank you, Chairman. The applicant, Grants Firework Property Management, is requesting approval for the construction of a new warehouse facility. The proposed site for the development is currently a vacant parcel located at 100 Jessica Lauren Court. This property is situated at the corner of Laverne Circle and Jessica Lauren Court. The property is zoned heavy commercial under the current zoning ordinance. The property to the north, east, and west is also heavy commercial, with the vacant property to the south as industrial. The new building totals 12,950 square feet, which 1,500 square feet of that is office space and the remainder being warehouse. 16 parking spaces are required. They are providing 17 spaces. And the applicant is requesting 2 waivers for the project. The first waiver is for 60% glazing requirement. The commercial walls facing the street require 60% glazing. The proposal does not meet the standard, as the wall facing Jessica Lauren Court provides 26% and the wall facing Laverne provides only 14.5 glazing. The second waiver is the overhead door facing the public street. The developer has addressed the zoning ordinance requirement for additional landscaping, screening incorporated for into the site plan. The elevations surrounding the structure features multiple overhead doors positioned to face the door, or the street, excuse me. Also, back in 2019, the site plan at 103 and 104 Jessica Lauren Court was granted similar approval, which is northeast of this property. Let's see here, keep going. Can you go one more? Thank you. Well, let's see. Those waivers also had the overhead doors and the glazing, and then also, that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. All right, anybody on the commission have questions or comments? Commissioner Silkwood, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a question for Ms. Shin. Caitlin, so for the glazing, the waivers for the neighboring properties that were granted, those percentages were similar to what is being requested tonight, or
Yes.
dissimilar?
Very similar.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and the other thing too, just as a comment from my perspective, I mean, you're in a heavy commercial or industrial area. I mean, I think this is what we should expect as buildings that are made for function over pretty. So I have no problems with what they've presented so far. Any other questions from the rest of you guys?
I move we approve both variants.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Everybody ready to vote?
Motion to approve, pass with 9 yeses.
Thank you, Zachary. Okay, the next thing on our planning agenda is Mansker Farms Phase 18, Section 1, setback deviation, final plat. These people are having a problem being available, from my understanding. So they had asked for a deferral.
They
you're
are here. They're
Okay.
here.
So I'm sorry about that. So with that being said, I'll read the rest of it and then we'll go from there. Mansker Farms Phase 18, Section 1, setback deviation, final plat, owner Wilson Bank and Trust, location 124 Manor Way, parcel 1144IN020.00. Again, lead planning staff is Caitlin. And this is a deferral from a previous meeting too. So
Correct.
go ahead.
I'll just run through the,
Just give us the highlights and if anything's changed from the last meeting.
actually, I'll go through the request and then I'll touch on the HOA.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. So there are 6 waivers that were being or deviations that were being requested. The first one is the front setback to allow the building wall to encroach 1.8 feet over the required front setback, to establish a new building setback of 28.2 instead of the 30. The right side setback would allow the building wall to encroach 0.23 feet over the required right side setback, which would make the building setback 4.77 feet. The rear setback would be allowed to encroach 1.9 feet over the previously amended rear setback of 7.9 by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So the new rear setback would be 6 feet. The next waiver was for the HVAC unit to allow the HVAC unit to encroach 1.4 feet into the allowed 70% encroachment, which would be the 1 foot from the property line. The next one was a retaining wall, a deviation to allow the retaining wall over 5 feet in height to be placed along the property line and driveway instead of requiring a 5-foot separation distance from the property line. I'm sorry, there was 5, not 6. In front of you, the HOA did provide documentation within the last few days. There is the red line's the ones that's not stamped. It has, the second page has red on it. But then the HOA has approved all but the HVAC being moved, or they're requiring the HVAC to be moved, and the concrete on the side of the house behind the garage to be removed. But they are willing to move forward with the other items. That's all I have.
So Caitlin, one thing, the HOA, what they did not want, they wanted the HVAC setback
Correct.
changed, correct?
Yes.
They wanted it honored.
So the front setback, the right side setback, and the rear setback, and the retaining wall, they were fine with. It was the HVAC unit that they did not want to allow,
Okay,
or are not allowing based on their approval process,
right.
and to remove the second driveway.
I know that was a lot said quick for the commission. And Commissioner Kerr, I see you're already up. Go right ahead.
Right. This is a follow-up from the last meeting. And I think the commission in general had wanted to hear from the bank in terms of their commitment, financing, budget, those things. So would you be opposed about coming up, giving us some thoughts?
Hello, Taylor Walker, Wilson Bank and Trust. I'm the Chief Credit Officer. Also have Wes Taylor here. Me and him lead lending. And I will tell you as we get started, I know there's some questions. But Commissioner Hasty, we'd probably like to put you on loan committee. You asked some pretty good questions, so we think you could help us out. No, but please, this is a property that we've taken back recently. Obviously, we have challenges with it, and tonight we're simply here to ask for a deferral to give us a little more time till next meeting, February, to work through some of these challenges with the staff to make sure we get it buttoned up properly. But happy to answer any questions.
Sure, thank you. What the question was at the last meeting was scoping out a budget for this. And I think I had asked the contractor last week, is there appropriate funding to address all of the deviations that we have here? That's question one. Question two is, what are you going to do with this property? Are you planning to sell it? Are you planning to, I don't know, what are you planning to do with it? And thirdly, I guess I heard a lot of concerns during the meeting and after the meeting about just the structure in general, the neighbors, the people that live in that neighborhood and what they've endured over the last 3 or 4 years. So I think I want to hear that we have some closure that's coming and that you're planning to meet these deviations that our staff has outlined to you, plus your HOA to meet the HOA requirements. And I guess more of an ask than anything is when you get all of the items worked out, if it's in February, would you be amenable to come back to this commission, say every 90 days or every 4 months or some increment to give us an update on how things are progressing? What I don't want to do is be here a year from now and we're still on the pad and hadn't launched yet. So, and you both seem very committed and motivated to do this, or you wouldn't be here, and I appreciate you being here, but those are just some of my concerns that I've got about the project.
Understood. So just a couple comments in general and lots of questions, so please I want to make sure I answer everything. But I would say that, we're a bank, we're in the lending business, and we're not in the real estate business, right? We don't like taking this back. This happens in worst case scenarios. We do a lot of construction projects throughout Middle Tennessee and East Tennessee. And this is the first one of this nature that I've been involved in that we've had to take back that have had such issues. And so I think we all want the same thing, right? We've had to take this back in REO. We want this off our books. We want it done right. We're also a community bank, right? And so we want to make sure that we do the right thing for the neighbors, the neighborhood. And so that is one thing that, one reason we are asking for a little more time is to make sure that we can, I think as Commissioner Hasty earlier said, hey, work with the staff, make sure that we check all the boxes, that we're doing the right thing. And ultimately, at the end of the day, of course, we have a responsibility to the bank and the shareholders. We also have a responsibility to the community. So I think our goal is to try to strike that balance with the two. So I know that's general, but that is our goal with this. Can I tell you exactly what we're going to do here today? For sure, I cannot. But what I will tell you is that we want to take time and try to get it right. So, and this isn't something REO, we typically try to move these off our books fairly quickly. We don't want to hang it around, but we're also not going to do something, knee jerk. We've got to find the right balance to all that as well. I mean, I'm from Sumner County. I live right between Gallatin and Hendersonville. This is my community too, right? And so we're very familiar with Friends of Mansker Farms. So we do want to make sure that we do the right thing there too.
Okay. So I guess I'm hearing that you would be amenable to come back at some increment and update the commission in terms of the progress. Again, I mean, we'll rely on staff too, but I think it's important for at least me to have FaceTime with you to see, is it going the direction it needs? Are there any hiccups that we need to be aware of? And I just don't want this to be a long, drawn-out process for the neighborhood. That's the bottom line. So
Understand. Well, what I would say is, I understand your question. Can we come back every 90 days, 60 days, and give this body updates? I would ask to let us kind of get through the process to figure out what we're going to do before I make any commitments. And that's, once again, kind of why we're here tonight, is to try to think through this process and make sure that we have a plan. And our goal is to have exit strategy on this that meets the needs of the city, of course, as well as the needs of the bank.
I'm not sure I got the commitment that I was looking for. Are you amenable to come back to this body at some point and give us an update on the progress of the project?
I would think as we get through this and we work with the people that we've hired to help us with this, and we work with the city staff, I will come back at that meeting and we can have a further discussion.
Okay.
How does that sound?
That sounds good.
Good.
Commissioner Silkwood, you were next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Frankly, I think you all are doing a good job of trying to make the best of a bad situation here. And I would like Director Free, if you would, to speak to some of the mechanisms we already have in place to avoid a situation like this from just lingering out there with no forward progress. So I think he's going to give everybody an update on that.
Yeah, I think if this drug on, let's just say the bank just says, okay, forget about it, and just somebody else gets control over it, or nobody else gets control over it, and it just sits there, then this would have to go through a process as it deteriorated. But until it deteriorated, then it's not through our property maintenance code enforcement. It's not necessarily a dangerous, home. So it would probably take a little bit of time for it to get to the point where the city, would be able to forcibly take action. But just in regards to what it is now, there's not an easy mechanism to move forward to say, okay, if these things aren't fixed, we're just going to level the house. I mean, there's substantial cost to the city if they did that. Even if we filed liens, I mean, it'd be a substantial amount to demolish that, as well as it would, from the legalities of it, to have a clear path to do such a thing. So I think it is optimistic that the bank is even caring to look to try to resolve this. So I'm happy that there is a responsible party that's looking to try to get a resolution on it. But if there is not a resolution reached at some point, then the future of this for the poor people out there that's got to look at it, I mean, this could go on just sitting there for a long time, which just I don't think anybody wants to see that. So that kind of is that kind of what you were? Yeah. So that's just what that is. So not thinking like, well, if the city doesn't like that and it doesn't meet the code, then we can just tear it down. There's possibly a path to that. It's quite expensive, and it's not a clear direct path. Even in cases, I mean, I'll just explain this. Even in cases where we have a house that's clearly it needs to come down, and it should have came. We don't really have a lot of these, but they surely should have come down years ago. Even when we fully engage in that, it takes a long time to get to that, that point. And there is a substantial cost associated with that, especially a site like this, and leveling, that site. So I hope we can get this, resolved in some manner. The planning staff is concerned about, not just the violations that exist, but we're deeply concerned about how we're going to get this resolved. Where this thing isn't an issue out in this neighborhood for the next 8 to 15 years, and so we definitely want to see something happen. So
yes, sir. I was going to say to the commission, I'm Wes Taylor. I oversee special assets for the bank, and to Taylor's point, we don't want it to be drawn out either. That's why working with these guys. We've come up with a plan for the driveway and to fix these issues, and we want to get that path forward. We don't want it sitting around forever. Asking for more time, we'd appreciate your consideration on that. Hey, I'll own that. That's on me. My house burned down last month. I head up special assets of the bank. I wasn't around to coordinate it the past few weeks, quite frankly, so I'll take that on, and that's just asking for a little grace and time for next month's meeting so we can be a little bit better prepared. So.
Totally understand. Sorry to hear about you.
No, it's okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Commissioner Martin, I see you're in the queue also.
Here's a new house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you move in ready.
Not yet.
Will be when the guy in the blue does it.
Yeah. I just want to say I appreciate the position you guys are in. I'm glad that y'all are motivated to take care of it. Tonight, if we had to vote, I would approve everything that the HOA approved of, and I would not approve what the HOA did not approve. So when you talk with the city and look at stuff, I would probably focus on just those remaining issues.
Good
Commissioner
feedback. Thank you.
Commissioner Slattery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Condolences on the loss of your home. That's devastating. And I appreciate what you're trying to do. I know banks don't want to be in the real estate business, and I saw when Director Free said casually, we don't want to have to tear the building down. I think I saw both of you shiver just a little bit. So we appreciate what you're dealing with. I'm just curious. The time that you need for the deferral, and I have no problem with it, I'm just curious, is that because you still don't feel confident that you can do more than you're asking for? Do you need to sprinkle more holy water on this project and try again? Do you think there's still some room for you to come closer to what was originally approved?
Well, I will tell you this. Luckily at the bank, we don't have too many of these situations, right? And so this is not a common practice for us. And even at the variance process and working with these wonderful gentlemen, we didn't realize the bank was even expected here last time, or we would have been here, right? And so obviously with Wes and that situation, we just simply want a little more time to work through it. And I think, and one reason, Commissioner Kerr, we don't know, it's the future, right? So I can't tell you that we're going to take on this construction project and I give you check-ins every 30 days because I don't know exactly what's going to happen. And so therein lies the request. We would just like a little more time to make sure that, as time goes on, it will become more clear. Our goal is not to drag this thing out forever and ever, but it is to come up with a solution that's hopefully acceptable to this body as well as the bank as well. So, I think as we continue to engage these gentlemen as well as some others possibly, it will become more clear.
Thank you.
Well, with all that being stated, no other commissioners are in the queue. I will offer a motion to give you a deferral until the next meeting, which is in February. We have a second. Will everybody take the time to vote by electronics? Thanks, you all.
Thank you. See you next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Approve. Motion to approve passed with 9 yeses.
Okay. Next on our agenda is Director Free. He wants to give us a little conversation about impact fees. Yeah. All right.
Right. Okay. You have before you this evening, everybody's been given the impact fee study that the city had completed here over the last year. Currently, where this is in the process, I want to update the Planning Commission on kind of where we are in this process, as well as in speaking with Mayor Clary. He wanted to put this, for me to bring this before you all, not necessarily to give clear direction on what option to move forward, but getting a general sense from the Planning Commission in regards to moving forward with development impact fees and kind of giving an opportunity, in this Planning Commission setting to address that. So we have the study that's completed, and then looking at the study, then we do have two ordinances that are proposed that'll be on BOMA's agenda next Tuesday that are different ones, different ways to kind of approach it. I didn't put any of that in there, because really we're just looking at kind of getting your comments from the overall plan, not necessarily a specific option. BOMA's going to be working out that detail, and this isn't something that typically that the Planning Commission from a requirement standpoint is required to be a party to on development impact fees, but it does make sense for it to kind of run past you guys. You're all aware of it. but to give you an option to address anything that you feel about impact fees. Ask me or Zachary any questions in regards to our knowledge of the proposed impact fees. And then if possible, if you wish, to even do a motion in support of impact fees moving forward or of impact fees not moving forward, whichever direction that would be. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll just kind of, everybody has the staff report, but I'll just open up to any questions anybody might have about impact fees or anything that you'd want to share about your overall thoughts about impact fees.
Commissioner Martin, you were first.
Yeah, I just wanted to invite the conversation on whether or not we would want to include retail. I'd love to hear everybody's opinions on that.
Doesn't it say that?
Commissioner Slattery, you were next.
Well, first I'd go back to Commissioner Martin's question. So residential fees only and one for residential and commercial fees. So where does retail doesn't fall into commercial fees?
It'd be under the commercial.
Okay. Oh, okay, all right. It was 74 pages, Mike. Don't ask questions that,
There'll be a test.
man, I looked for the Cliff Notes. They're not available on Amazon. I just have a question about the fiscal impact, and I think I recall us having discussions about this when we have had one-off discussions on projects. The revenue generated by impact fees is only eligible for use on capital expenditures that mitigate impacts of new developments. So is that truly saying that if a project's going to be built on Sanders Ferry Road and traffic is a problem, that impact fees would be allocated specifically to mitigating traffic issues or mitigating school overload? I mean, they really would be tied to very carefully mitigating that particular project's impact?
Not necessarily, not actually.
Okay.
So like if we had a project, 120 Sanders Ferry that we just, discussed and approved, that, for example, if it was required to pay impact fees, which would be, commercial or retail or office, fees, if it had to pay impact fees, that money would go into an account for either, it wouldn't be parks, it would just be, depending on what we did, if it was just we had transportation fund, then it would go into the transportation fund, and then it would have to fund the projects, capital projects that were identified in the transportation fund. That would not necessarily mean it would be anything on Saundersville or Saunders Ferry. Saunders Ferry, Mayor? Sanders Ferry, Saunders Ferry. So it wouldn't necessarily mean that it would have that. It would just go to benefit the overall transportation system.
Well, I asked that, thank you, Keith, and I asked the question because I think sometimes the community angst around development could in part be mitigated if they see that those impact fees, and let's stay with Sanders Ferry. Yeah. If there's a project on Sanders Ferry and everybody has discussed the impact it's going to have and the impact fees that would be generated by a project, but then Sanders Ferry isn't on the list for another 4 or 5 years, then how does that address the community concerns that are valid and are articulated? I just wonder if there's an opportunity for impact fees to be demonstrated to the community as truly being a fee to mitigate the impact of that project.
Can I try that?
I believe the mayor wants
Oh,
to say
hello,
something.
Mayor.
Go ahead, about this subject.
So yeah, so we did have a similar conversation during our workshop. We have our 10-year master transportation plan, and we have ranked all those projects. And part of the ranking has to do with impact that project will have. So if we have a new development, residential or commercial, and we're going to be creating a bigger problem, bigger demand on infrastructure, and this project will now have a greater impact in solving a problem. So it's going to move up the list. So instead of it being pick any project at number 14, 15, or 16, and then if we have a project that is going to be close, if we have a development that's going to be close to where that project is probably going to get moved up because part of the criteria is what kind of impact does it have for the surrounding area. So we would never say, since this development is happening on Sanders Ferry Road, we're going to put money toward a Sanders Ferry project. However, what we do is we go back and reevaluate and rescore those, and likely anything that comes close to that development is going to move up on the list.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I would continue to advocate from a messaging standpoint that if impact fees do move forward and become part of our city structure, there is an opportunity to message this well to the community so that they understand those things. That it's not just seen as, great, we've put a project on Sanders Ferry and we're beating the daylights out of Sanders Ferry right now. But we've put a project in an area of the city, and the people that live right around that and feel the impact personally in their day-to-day lives don't see that the work on Sanders Ferry just moved up in the priority list. So I would advocate strongly for a messaging effort around how impact fees would be used.
I could address something that, one of the things that we're doing as well is, if we adopt impact fees, regardless of whatever version that we adopt, we're also going to adopt a credit system of how, you could have a credit. So if you had a development, and which we would prefer people to use credit. So if you had a development and they were going to have to do off-site improvements, I'll use Sanders Ferry again, since we're talking about it. But they're going to do that whole, add that whole lane down through there, on that portion of that development. That is something they had to do regardless, and they have to pay for it. But it's specifically, the majority of that is specifically for their development. But on some other developments, unless it's just a left-hand turn lane or really a widening that just impacts that particular development that's triggering the need for it, if it's bigger improvements, then they could do those improvements in that area, near that area, and spend their development impact fees and do it toward credits. So that we wouldn't end up with any impact fee, but we'd end up with a whole bunch more specific targeted transportation improvements that, like what the mayor was talking about, our capital improvement transportation plan. One of those projects, a large commercial development might not be able to build a whole project, but it could pick a small piece of it, and in addition to doing what it's triggered to have to do, it's going to do extra, because it would rather go ahead and do all of that than pay the impact fee, which really, that's a part of the impact fee, is the credit system. The credit system will allow us to then get more things done where we're not just sitting there holding the money, waiting to get enough money, to help offset a project. So in that sense, you could impact things around the direct impact area for a development, if any of that makes sense.
Sure, and I think it would be nice if we move forward with the impact fee system and credits. I think it's a real opportunity for the citizens to see the benefits, not just a Chick-fil-A that's closer to them, but the benefits that the community in totality is getting, and how it benefits their particular part of our community by moving up in the priority list or getting the developer to do a little bit more than they had to. I think we lose sight of that in our internal workings, and it doesn't always translate out to the community.
Good question.
Commissioner Kerr.
Yeah, just a couple of observations. I mean, I'm certainly for impact fees. I think there is a need for that. It's a long overdue need in Hendersonville, in my opinion. Just from a metric perspective and revenue into our city, and would you anticipate, Keith, that this would speed up development, slow down development, or would it not have an impact on development?
It depends. And this is something, that BOMA is looking at on how to calculate it and how they may do it. But it's just finding that right balance. it's hard to say. You know, could there be projects that, you know, might not happen because of them? It's possible that that's the case. Probably less so on the residential side of things than maybe
Yeah, I would
some
see
commercial
the
things.
commercial and the residential as two totally separate lanes.
Yeah.
One, you know, you're looking at the infrastructure and schools, the impact to actually adding units and homes. The other is a business that's going to bring jobs and more tax revenue. So, I mean, certainly you wouldn't put them in the same bucket. They're two separate buckets for sure.
And it depends on the calculation and what the basis is that we're doing the calculation. You know, because the study, you can see what the study is saying is a big number. That wouldn't be the number we'd use. We'd use some percentage of that, and it just depends on different projects. If that's, you know, if it's manageable for a lot of projects, it wouldn't keep. It just depends on what the mix was. It wouldn't necessarily keep somebody from doing something. But if the figure was pretty high, then of course, you know, all of that comes into play.
Right.
Mayor?
Todd, so Mike and I sort of looked at each other because I think the answer is it depends who the 13 people are on the board, or whether that speeds it up or slows it down. And I'll tell you, my perspective is that these impact fees are going to help us get closer to that day far, far off in the future where somebody says, our infrastructure isn't a problem, we're caught up. I'm like, y'all, I don't know that day will ever come, but we will get closer to it. And I tell people all the time, I'm not anti-growth, I'm pro-infrastructure. And so I really have a hard time growing our residential population before infrastructure is caught up. And so in a sense, this will help us get caught up. And if it helps us get caught up, then it will help us grow more. It's my perspective.
It'd certainly be in a catch-up mode at this point. I mean, you know, so what my fear would be, if I were one of those 13 voting on this, would be, does this, you know, put more powder in the keg in terms of development and adding units to the infrastructure that we don't have up to date yet, that we need some more infrastructure in terms of managing traffic and everything that we deal with every meeting.
Yes.
I just would not want to see it kick into another gear
Yeah.
when we're already in a catch-up mode.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't think you can price your way out of that in a short-term basis because, you know, at some point, people stop building and stop coming to open businesses here if you make it too expensive. So there is that balance, to your point. There's a balance there.
Commissioner Evans?
Yeah, I've been around here long enough to remember when commercial development was really frowned upon in Hendersonville, and the pendulum then kind of swung the other way, and now we're talking about overdevelopment in residential because we've got traffic problems everywhere. Before I was involved in the Planning Commission, I've stood out there and made several speeches about impact fees versus negotiated impact fees because the latter is not specifically allocable to any particular project. And I didn't really like that because I didn't think that that was the appropriate thing to do. It seemed to be incentivizing decisions that might not be made otherwise. So that really wasn't a good way to go. I did see that our infrastructure that we have, I made the argument that those of us who've lived here for a long time have paid for all that infrastructure, and the folks that are coming in new houses and new subdivisions probably should invest in the infrastructure that we've already got here. So I've been for impact fees for a long time. I think we should have done it 5 to 10 years ago in lots and lots of different ways. And also, I got a communication today from someone who emphasized the importance of having somewhere for our local residents to work in Hendersonville rather than having to travel down I-65 every day. And in that situation, you want to emphasize what you want more. So the discussion of whether to apply to commercial or residential or both would seem to be answered by what we probably would prefer out of those two segments of development. But nonetheless, I like the impact fee idea, and I think we should proceed with it as soon as possible.
Commissioner Hardwick.
The fees that we saw on the report, is that what's being proposed? Or is that just a number the consultant came up with that has no relevancy at all?
Let me let Zachary address that.
So yeah, that is the basis for which BOMA is basing their numbers off of. So that is the maximum that's allowed based on, the numbers that the consultant pulled. So all of that is the basis for which the numbers that BOMA is deriving comes from. So we're able to point back to the study and say, it could have been this, like this is the maximum allowable. But as a city and, the mayor and aldermen are discussing it, they're trying to, like Keith said, trying to strike that balance between, okay, what's a fee that's manageable, what's a fee that works for the city, what's a fee that still works for development in a certain sense, and how do you craft that? So those are the numbers are the basis for that, basically. And it's required for us to be able to point back to too. And I think as part of the two kind of, not competing, but the two that are on the table, they do talk about revisiting the studies every 5 years to kind of go back and determine what the market is kind of dictating and adjusting those numbers.
So, a lot of comments, it mentioned in the report that Franklin, Smyrna, Laverne, White House all have impact fees. How do those fees compare to what those cities charge?
Some are similar, some are different. I don't necessarily know what the basis for White House or anybody else. I haven't seen the studies that they've done, but I know that ours is rooted in data. And it does align with, I think it closely aligns with Franklin. It's closer to Franklin.
Yeah,
we have that information.
I think they all do. All of them do a percentage.
Yeah.
I don't know that they all go 100% of what
Right,
of what the study says. And part of that is looking for that right balance. But part of it is all of this is wrapped in a big potential litigious bowl too. That we've got to be careful and make sure we're doing something that's very defensible and very, very justified. And that's why one of the reasons a lot of communities don't go all the way up to exactly what the study had. That's just what the max is. And so that kind of comes into play too, of why you wouldn't go all the way. Because then the study, the study could be questioned anyway. But if you're going all the way to the full tilt, 100% of what the study said, then the study will come under attack, quite a bit, versus if you're backing off of that and give it.
If I were BOMA, I would be real curious what the market rate is when you're looking at those other cities, because you're competing with them for the development. It would also be curious to know that I believe Costco's a 100,000 square foot building, and based on the number that was in the report, their impact fee would have been well over $1 million. And would that have killed that deal? I think that's something the board BOMA has to look at. The study suggested a fee of over $12,000 for every residential lot. That is going to add directly to the payment of that homeowner. We're already saying that young families can't live in Hendersonville because it's already overpriced. And you put another $12,000 on that lot, then that's another $100 a month payment financed over 30 years. So I think impact fees are good until they're not. I think definitely we need to have costs to help with infrastructure. They say there's two best times to plant a tree. One was 10 years ago and the other is today. We've missed a huge 10-year run in development that I'm not sure the next 10 years is going to be near what this past 10 years have been. I think we're kind of at the end of the development cycle. But at the same time, it's something that clearly we need to look at. I just don't want to get it to where it's killing all development. And that people are going, well, I think I'll go to Gallatin, or I think I'll go to the county. Because while we all complain about the traffic, we all complain about infrastructure that needs to be there, we don't want to live in a city that's dying. And we're extremely fortunate to live in a city that is vibrant and that people want to be here. There was a reason we chose to move here. And I don't want to change that. I want to find the balance to where that new development is paying for itself, but that we're not running it all off either. And so, yes, I think it's a good thing, but I don't want to see us take a sledgehammer to something that doesn't need to be there.
Commissioner Martin?
Sorry.
Commissioner Silkwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, a lot of good comments tonight, and I'll just echo what some folks have said. You know, one of my concerns, at least on the commercial side of development fees, would just be sort of what Commissioner Hardwick said. You know, I would hate to lose a corporate campus. I would hate to lose a Costco when they could just as easily open in Rivergate, just as easily open in Gallatin, or, you know, somewhere nearby that doesn't charge an impact fee. So in speaking to the BOMA members who are here tonight, that would be one of my top concerns, as I'm sure you've heard.
Commissioner Slattery?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Freed, how recently or how long has White House had impact fees? Do you have any idea?
I think they've actually had it for a long time.
Okay.
They've had it for quite some time. I can't remember if it's parks that they had, and then they recently did something different, updated it or something a couple of years ago. But they've had some form of an impact fee for a long time. I don't think it was a large fee. Okay. I don't think it was, the figure probably wasn't updated for years, you know, on exactly what that was.
Okay, thank you. Just curious.
Okay. No other comments by anyone? Well, I know that you had made mention of offering a motion or anything like that. We've had a lot of discussion to, you know, is anybody impelled to offer a motion to move forward with anything? Just to give a thumbs up, thumbs down to BOMA? We'll entertain anything you have.
Let me make one comment. I think we should offer a motion because I feel strongly enough that that is the right direction for the city, just to give, you know, voice support for what BOMA is going to consider. So I'll offer the motion that at least the Planning Commission is in favor of moving forward on impact fees. Now, sorting it out, which is, whether it's commercial or residential, I think we need to hear from BOMA what the numbers are, what their tolerance level is. But the whole process of moving forward with impact fees, I would certainly make the motion that we do that.
Okay. And Commissioner Hasty, I see you are lit up.
I will second his motion, but, you know, the caveat, and somebody mentioned it, we don't want a commercial, or residential, or a retail impact fee so high that a Costco would move right across the county line somewhere. We need Costco. If you're a Costco member and go there, gosh, they got to bring in a whole lot of dollars.
Yeah.
And it'd take them a long time to pay that impact fee that study has recommended. You know, I will second the motion to give the thumbs up to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And I think with the staff guidance, the comments that have been mentioned tonight about making sure that that fee is such that it doesn't kill that major development. But yeah, and I think a lot of the major residential developers like the Pulte's and people like that, they pay them everywhere else. They expect to pay for it. You know, I wouldn't worry about them as much as I would the Costco or something like that. But I think it is something other that, you know, I worked for the development community for years, and of course years ago they were adamantly no, no, no. and they got their way for a long time. But it's something that Hendersonville needs and probably has been needed for the last 10 or 12 years. We missed the boat on some. So let's, someone said we can at least plant the tree now. So we need to plant it, but it needs to be carefully managed in a fee structure that we can get development kind of headed in the direction that would be the most advantageous to the city tax-wise and infrastructure-wise. So, and I think the staff will do that. But that was an interesting reading on that study as to how they get it. You know, the old, you know, you throw enough numbers at the wall, something will hit. And boy, there was a bunch of numbers there. You know, every little this, that, and the other, even down to the point that, you know, if you leave town tomorrow, it's gonna change, or if he adds to, he has a baby, it's gonna change again. It's gonna go up. I mean, it was very, 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 very detailed, but I think it's something we need to support, and I think the staff involved will make the right decision.
Commissioner Kerr, I see you're back.
Yeah, no change to my motion. I just wanted to comment what Commissioner Hardwick said. You used 12,000 as a number. That's assuming that the developer wouldn't pick up part of that fee.
They won't.
Well, that's something we need to consider, or the BOMA should consider. Is there a way to force that, where the builder would pick up part of that, and it's not just a complete dump on the homeowner? So, but that's just something to throw out there.
Commissioner Evans, I see you're back in there.
Second bite at the apple. That it strikes me as interesting. The time to plant that tree is 10 years ago. And I agree with that. Every piece of property that I have in Sumner County has doubled in price in the last 5 years. And that's not because of anything but market forces. And that's maybe changing. It may be. But an impact fee through that period of time would not have changed anybody's mind about moving to Hendersonville. Not with what we've seen in development. Will it in the future? Who knows? We're almost built out. Almost built out. We need to find a place for the people in Hendersonville to work instead of finding more people for the city of Hendersonville.
Commissioner Hardwick?
I just want to say, I am going to vote no. Not that I'm opposed to the impact fee, but I don't want BOMA to misread that I'm for what was in this report. So, with voting yes on that.
Okay. Well, we have a motion and a second before us, and I'll just try to reiterate the motion. The motion is to give the BOMA a thumbs up as it relates to an impact fee. And just to reiterate everything that the people here have said, we don't want to see growth squashed. We want to make sure that it's right, it's adequate, it's good for the city, it's good for the people that live here, and we don't want to price ourselves out of the whole marketplace. So with that, I would say we'll do this by voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Yes.
We got one opposed. So there we go. Zachary, have you recorded it?
And that was, I think it was 1999 when White House initially had their first impact fee. Thanks to our city attorney sharing that with me.
All right, thank you. Next on our agenda are the staff level projects approved. You can see that Rock Castle Wealth Management Office's 3-page plat amendment, 119 Maple Road Boulevard's approved. We also have several staff level projects pending. I won't read through all these. Anybody got specific questions they want to ask or bring up? You got the staff available. You're welcome to do it right now. If not, we'll skip across all of that. And then finally, we have director comments.
All right, I am not going to belabor this, Mr. Chairman, but actually, I'll take my comments and I'll go ahead and do the year-end report. Everybody's had a copy of the year-end report, just looking at some of the touch points of the things that we touch with preliminary plats, final plats, all the different development plans, PDP, all those DPs. and site plans and rezoning. So we had a lot of things last year. We had a lot of included on this the minor home occupation of 300. That really is something. We have a lot of folks that are working out of their home, so they have to get a home occupation permit to do that. And just this year, we issued 300. So just about every year, this was more than we did last year, but typically every year it's around 300. So we have a very diverse population of people working out of their households here in our community. And then also when you see use and occupancy, where you see that that's 220, what that is like a new building that got built and they had to do a use and occupancy, but also it includes an ice cream shop that went out and something else went into it, or a doctor's office that changed ownership and had a different doctor in there. So it's all those different kinds of things. So there's a lot of activity that we're seeing. You know, looking at it from a numbers standpoint, a lot of our different numbers, you know, were higher than they were last year. Overall, it's probably about average what it's been. But as we progress in these remaining years to come, over the next 5 to 8 years, there is going to be a lot of different things that are going to change in our community, especially from the growth standpoint. And hopefully here over the next couple of months, I'm going to give you a very detailed, data-driven overview of where we are and where we're going in the future with our population and our build-out. And we're close enough to that I think we're going to be able to kind of light on exactly where we are and where we're headed here in the next several years. But as we look at, there might be less different things that we're touching. Everything that we're touching now is more complicated and more difficult because most of all of the properties that were the simple, easy properties, all of that was done long ago. The things that we do have remaining in this last 5 to 7% of undeveloped property that doesn't already have a plan associated with it. It's some of our most challenging topographic properties, properties that have drainage issues and different things. So there's a lot of different challenging things with all of these things that the staff touch on their reviews. But the staff is doing a great job, and I mean, I'm entering now my 10th year here with the city, and I can say this, including the planning department, but even outside of the planning department with our fellow professionals that we deal with at the fire department and in the public works, we've never had a better group of professionals that are more thorough in looking out and advocating for the community as they're reviewing development. And I think you guys can see that on a pretty consistent basis as you're seeing the things that are being reviewed. So we have a really good group here that is guarding and safeguarding the development as it moves forward in our community. We continue during this last year. We continue to leverage everything for our community. So every time we're interacting with a development, a proposed development, or a development that's underway, we're leveraging everything we can to make sure that we're getting the best of everything from that developer or from that builder. And what we have found, consistently, is that these engineers and architects and different folks that'll sit up here at this thing and and be asking for different things, at the heart of the things that they do, they really care about their profession and what they do. And be honest with you, they like the opportunity to be challenged for a higher bar, for a higher expectation of a deliverable. And it's what they in their heart want. But a lot of times because of money or different things with the folks that are hiring them, economies of scale come into play, and you've got to kind of pare back things. But as they're paring back things, we're challenging and saying, hey, we want a little bit more than what you're talking about giving. So through this last year, I really appreciate all of those interactions. And one thing I'll mention too is, and I don't know that I've really shared it here, but one of the things that we've done real consistently over the last 6 years is that a couple of times a year we go out and we actually do an audit, site plan audit of all of our commercial areas. and we look at, hey, are there trees missing? Are there bushes missing? What's going on? Is the site all messed up? Are there big potholes and things like that? And through our site plan process, we send letters and we tell people they got to fix it, or they're going to be not gonna be in compliance with their site plan if they don't have those trees. And I'm telling you, this amazes me, but it says a lot about our community, and it says a lot about the people that have property, commercial property and an office property in our community. Once they are aware, and I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of different letters and different episodes that we send stuff out in, 100% compliance. Some things take a little bit longer to take care of, but we get 100% compliance. One thing that we're doing, and this is going to be the 5th year we've done this, our zoning enforcement officer later this month, he's going to be working some nights, and so we go out, and so when you and your family are going out at night to a restaurant or to shop in our beautiful community and it's a little dark or, a light's out or something, we're looking at those things and we're letting the businesses know that they need to fix those. And once they're aware of it, they're fixing that. And you'll probably notice also throughout the community, there's been a conversion, a lot of LED lights in commercial parking lots. That's something that we're also encouraging our commercial businesses to do. And I think that's making it safer. It's making it feel safer for folks to shop in the evenings. And I think that's good. That's something that's good for our community. So that's everything I kind of had to share about that. But I can answer any questions that anybody may have, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Kerr, I see you were lit up.
Yeah, mine is more, Keith, I just wanted to commend you and your leadership. What you do is tremendous work. Your whole staff does tremendous work. And I've lived in different cities, and I know it's not this way everywhere. So hats off to your leadership, but we wouldn't be here talking about some of the accomplishments without your leadership. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I really do appreciate that. And and I think you guys probably have it with your friends or spouses when you're driving through our great community, especially a lot of times at night, and you're driving through, and oftentimes me and my wife will say it to each other, oh my gosh, isn't it great that we live in such a beautiful, beautiful place? And so it's really great to live in and work in Hendersonville too, but it's great to be a resident and live here and get to enjoy the physical and the built environment. And the built environment is a big part of what this commission has oversight for, and things that you've held firm and made happen. And the people that sat before you 10, 15 years ago, had that same determination that they wanted quality development so that we can all drive through our community and have great pride in it. So I'm very excited about the upcoming year, and I'm very excited about where we are as a community. One of the things I might also mention is, I've shared with you a lot of times, we'll have pre-development meetings with potential developments. Usually over the last few years, we've had as many as 3 a week. It has slowed down a little bit, where we're having probably on an average maybe 2. And so those are continuing. So there's a whole lot of things on the horizon. Now, what we are finding out is that of those pre-development meetings that we do have, where before the percentage was probably, 75% of them would probably end up working out. Now, with those that we meet, it's usually about half, and some of that is just challenges with, the value of commercial property and finding commercial property, that is available. But we're still an extremely sought after community, and I think it's just really amazing that we're blessed as a community to be at the stage of development that we're in, and that over the next 10, 15, 20 years, this isn't our heyday. Our heyday is actually still ahead of us, but a big part of our growth is really behind us. And a lot of communities, maybe they're only really great while they're growing, but our community, we've done the growth pretty well, where that when that starts slowing down, through build out, then it changes into something different. But I think I'm very excited about what that is going to change into and what our future is going to be here. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments with anyone? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight.